Hello, my name is Nick Francis, and I hate seeing usable lumber in dumpsters headed to the landfill.
Hey there. Welcome to the Redirect Podcast. This is where we dive into real conversations, share stories, and just hang out talking about finding our purpose in retirement. We're glad you're along for the ride, and let's get into it. Curt, Dale, back in the studio, cruising through season 2, off to a great start. Another great guest in studio, as you heard in the intro, Nick Francis. Excited to hear his story about Scrap2Home and upcycling wood for good. I did want to mention to all of our listeners, this is a continuation of our series of episodes that we're branding as engagement. It's these opportunities for people to get engaged with organizations and an opportunity for them to find purpose, to outlet their skills, their talents, their strategies, wherever it is that they can plug in their availability and their talents. This is another wonderful episode in that series of engagement. Do you have a question for you, though, before we get cruising with Nick? It's about repurposing things. Do you have instances in your life where you get to regularly or even occasionally repurpose things in your life?
I'll jump in. First off, right off, I started. Are you saying recycling or repurpose? And all of a sudden, repurpose is a much
really different,
bigger deal.
Yeah.
And I sat down last night thinking about that a little bit, and we do. I consider this repurposing food scraps for compost.
That counts.
Got involved in that a couple of years ago, and it serves my purpose because I need compost for the raised bed gardens that I have. Typical recycling, I do that. We do that. Fran's been doing that for a long time, and she's one that leads a lot of this. Clothes, and we're constantly looking at going through the house and purging, and we've gotten to know a lot of places that are great for sending clothes and other things in the household that you find that you've got to get rid of. We're at that stage in life where we're, not accumulating, we're decumulating, if that's a word. But sending clothes to Goodwill, sending clothes to Seven Hills Resale Shop. Nick knows a lot about that, and that's a great place for that. And we actually collect plastic bags in a separate bag and bring those to Kroger, where they repurpose the plastic. Mm-hmm. So I think that for me, that's doing some repurposing.
How about you, Curt?
Another story of Curt Brewer, work in progress. Years ago, I was not friendly to repurposing because my wife was a repurposer and our house was filled with things. My wife is the best dumpster diver that I know. And as a result, I have
unclaimed goods acquisitioner.
Whatever.
Yeah. Instead of dumpster diving.
You can fluff it up if you want, but I say dumpster diving because you really haven't lived life until you've hurled over the side of it and you're inside and you're moving stuff to get to that one piece you want to get. So Nick can relate to that, and I can too. And to the point where, as you know, we had the episode on with Gay Marie Guigenti talking about letting go. And they talked about recycling, repurposing, redistributing, giving things away for the better so it has another life. And as a result of that, I have to admit, I now look for things on the side of the road as I go for my walks. Oh, there's a grill. I can throw that in the back of my truck and take it down to Cohen and then weigh it and then get money for it. We just did a run the other day. My niece and nephew were cleaning out their house. We went over there to help and we sorted things. Jackie took stuff off to various locations, Habitat to Humanity and all this kind of stuff. And then we had the metal stuff left over. We went to Cohen, took about an hour, and we walked away with $47.
Hey.
Including our beer cans that we're storing in a plastic bag in our garage, and we take it down there and we get money for that. It's $1.25, but still the point is we're making a difference. We're helping our earth as well as putting things where they can be used again as opposed to just putting it on the curb, and then we don't think about it anymore. So it's been a fun experience. I have to admit, I'm looking at things a lot differently now. Yeah.
That's awesome.
And I think your wife needs the T-shirt, unclaimed goods acquisitioner. My experience with repurposing things, I would say two. One, my wife and I went through not downsizing, but reorganizing and thinning out, decluttering 2 houses. And man, I cannot believe the number of trips I made to Goodwill or St. Vincent de Paul. I mean, it was a lot. I mean, I'm talking like maybe a couple of hundred. It was a lot. Yeah. Separately, and Nick, maybe you'll appreciate this one. I don't have a sprawling abode. I have a pretty modest house, and my dining situation doesn't really seat a lot of people. And I needed the ability to on-demand expand that, and I didn't have the room for a really generous table. And so I came up with this idea to take my existing table and craft a skin, if you will, a table topper that will fit over the top of the existing table to expand it. And I thought, I'm just going to tuck this under the bed when I'm not using it. But then I realized, it sticks 1.5 feet out from underneath the bed. Whoops. That's not going to work. And so what I did is I took 2 pieces of French cleat and mounted them to the wall, and it became my headboard in the guest room. And on demand, I can dismount it and sit it on my kitchen table.
Very creative.
Wow. Or you could have cut it in 2.
No. Then it won't work. It's got to be a continuous piece. Anyway.
All right.
So, yeah, some tiny house nonsense is what that is all about. Curt, why don't you introduce us to our guest?
Let's do that. Today's friend of the Redirect Podcast is Nick Francis. Nick is 59 years old, married to Amy, and has 3 adult children, Sam, Katie, and Molly. Nick has been an educator for 35 years, teaching, coaching, and in various administrative roles. He teaches part-time at the Seven Hills School, but now spends most of his time running the nonprofit that he started just over 3 years ago, Scrap2Home. Nick was contemplating personal redirection to find a new challenge that was both stimulating and meaningful. He found that during the pandemic, when a family project grew into become what is now Scrap2Home. Welcome, Nick, to the Redirect Podcast. We're so happy you're here, and I can't wait to talk more about how this passion of yours turned out to be a thriving business. And so welcome to the Redirect Podcast.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yeah.
Take us on that journey, because as you talked about that, Curt, I'm sitting there going, where did that start? Where did that idea catch your brain? Because I remember my kids went to where you taught, and you were a rock star, and when you're in rock star position, generally you're not thinking about something else. So bring us back.
Okay. Well, thanks for the kind words.
And do you have groupies?
No. Okay. So I'd been an educator for a long time, as Curt mentioned there, and honestly, I was thinking what might be my next step, next stage, next venture, and I was exploring different things, and then pandemic hit. Everyone's at home. We're all looking for projects to do without leaving the house, and I don't like waste. It's just always been a thing for me. Ask my kids about wasting food, and they'll tell you. Waste of time, money, energy, food, anything. And I noticed in my neighborhood at the construction sites how much wood was going into the dumpsters, headed for the landfill, just getting thrown away, and there was nothing wrong with the wood. So this is what all came together as we're looking for things to do. I kept thinking, boy, we could build something with that wood. So I don't consider myself an expert woodworker or carpenter, but I enjoy building with wood. So I have 3 children, as you mentioned. The middle one, Katie, likes to build with me. We would literally drive up to a construction site in our SUV and say, hey, can we take your scrap wood? Of course, they never cared. They'd give it to us. And we get it home. My wife, Amy, was looking up simple designs online for furniture. And Katie and I would build. Amy would paint or stain. And that's how it started. And the intention was always to give the furniture away. That's how it got going. Yeah. Very small scale, out of the garage to start with.
So what was happening to the wood? I mean, when you pulled up, did they say, Where was the wood going? What were they doing with it?
Building a house.
Yeah.
He was disassembling a house. It's not doing anything.
He worked at night a lot.
That's right. None of that's true, by the way.
Yeah, there seemed to be pieces they didn't need. No, honestly, most of it was in big piles, probably waiting for the dumpster to arrive, and that's what they would tell me. You've got 2 days before the dumpster gets here, but that's usually what it was. One of my favorite stories about when this started was a bike ride with my wife and 2 daughters, and we're over in Blue Ash, opposite the golf course, that new development there, Summit Park. All the houses were going up, and we're just biking around checking out houses. And we noticed this huge pile of wood, and I'm not kidding. It was as tall as I am, which is not very tall, by the way, but masses of wood. Just looked like it was in a pile to get thrown away. And we all look at each other because we just started doing this thing, and it was a Sunday, nobody's around. So I go back the next day, I find the guy who's managing the site, and he said to me, well, you have about 2 days before the dumpster gets here. It's only there because I haven't found a dumpster yet, but it's all getting thrown away. So most of it was sitting in piles at the site.
And these are long pieces, short pieces?
All
what
over.
Does it look like? Oh,
all over the place.
Yeah.
Anywhere honestly, we would pick up pieces if it was clean, no nails and screws, 2 feet long, because we could use it.
Yeah.
But anywhere up to 8-10 feet long pieces. The stuff at Summit Park was trusses and all sorts.
So in my early 20s, I was a trim carpenter, that ultimately got me into cabinet making and woodworking. And
you want to volunteer with us?
I do actually.
Good.
And when I would go on to, I focused specifically on exterior trim carpentry for new homes for a long time. And you're right, the waste is incredible. In the wintertime, when we were doing exterior trim, we had to work. There was no option. Rain was the only deterrent. And so to get by working outside, we would start a fire outside the house and burn all of the excess wood and scrap that the framers are the ones that have that excessive waste. But, we weren't exempt from it as well. But, there's a lot of it.
Yeah.
And I don't think some of the newer technology and how they're orchestrating or organizing framing with prints and prepackaged wall sets could affect your inventory a little bit, but there even beyond that, there's still going to be a lot of custom cut pieces and a lot of waste.
Yep.
One thing I want to mention, and you've mentioned it a couple of times, in case people are listening and saying, hey, that's a good idea, I want to do that, you just can't show up and start taking things out of a dumpster. You should talk to somebody who's on site and get permission, correct?
Absolutely. So I would never did walk onto a site and just take wood. You've got to find somebody. If no one's there, you've got to wait until somebody is there. And sometimes they won't let you go in the dumpster.
Mm-hmm.
There
liability
are,
issues.
Exactly. Yeah. And fair enough, we wouldn't go in the dumpster.
Well, without permission, you're trespassing.
Correct.
Yeah.
And now sites even have
construction
cameras. They even have cameras on things on their dumpster to see if people are coming through. So it's one of those things that you got to be very, very careful about.
I didn't want to get arrested. Let's put it that way. Right.
But it's good helping good. There's no doubt about it. No doubt about it. Now, you made the comment about hating waste.
Yep.
Is this just a you thing, or was there something in your life that instilled this aspect that I got to put everything to use as best I can?
That's a great question. I'm not honestly sure. I think it's just a thing, a me thing. I just don't understand why we should, or why we do, throw stuff away when there's nothing wrong with it. Mm. I mean, food's a great example. I mean, I think you probably know that's a huge percentage of our landfills is food waste. And then there's people down the street who don't have enough to eat. So I think you guys had La Soup on here.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, it's similar to what I'm doing, really, just a different waste product.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I have this thing about not wasting. I mean, I mentioned time, energy. We get one, as far as I know, we get one life, and I don't like to waste that time I have. Mm-hmm. That's just the thing I have as well. So I'm not exactly sure if things happened that made me think that way, but it's definitely part of the way I try to live my life now.
Yeah. Well, it is definitely something that we all have to pay attention to, because there is need and there is a lot of waste because we have so much.
And so you reclaim this material from the average residential home construction site, or maybe commercial. What do you do with it?
Well, just to back up slightly, to be clear now, honestly, most of our wood comes from other places. I thought when we started it would all be construction sites. We still get some from construction sites, but most of it is now coming from manufacturing facilities where wood is part of their packaging, or it might be used to separate their deliveries or separate crates or something, and they're just throwing it away.
Yeah.
And that has actually become more our source of wood now.
In pallet business too? I mean, are you involved with like the pallet business?
No, we've not gone into pallets. It's a possibility down the road. The quality of the wood in pallets really varies, and it's a lot of work taking them apart.
A lot of
So we
labor
haven't-
disassembling that.
There are people building with the pallets, so yeah, go get them, use them. It's a great idea. But right now, we haven't needed to do it. It's more crates, 2x6, 2x8 material, 2x10 pine. Some of it's 8, 10, 12 foot long.
That's
that are
insane.
used to transport big pieces
Yep.
of equipment
Yep.
that now it's there on site. Now they got to get rid of it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Exactly.
Interesting.
And so what do you do with it?
So typically the first thing is get it back to the shop and disassemble if we need to. So some of it needs to be taken apart. We've got to take out some nails or screws, staples, that kind of stuff. Once we've done that, typically cut it to size. So we got a chop saw going, and we're cutting it down to the lengths that we need. And then cleaning the wood so that it's ready to use, ready to build with. And by that, I mean running it through a planer or a jointer or a sander, something like that to clean it up. And then you have perfectly usable wood.
So when you cut things to the length that you need, you obviously have something in mind that you're working on. What determines the lengths and the type of wood and all that?
So yeah, we have a few standard patterns that we use. When we first started, we were building at a wood shop at New Life Furniture Bank, which is another Cincinnati nonprofit. Wonderful organization. They were so helpful to us. We were sharing their wood shop with another woodworking program, and they were building certain sized items for New Life Furniture Bank. So we basically
Like what?
Coffee tables, end tables, kitchen tables.
Okay.
So we were basically using their sizes, if you like, because we knew that's what they needed. So that's how we started determining the sizes, and we can tweak things. So if we want to make the coffee table 30 inches instead of 34 inches, it doesn't really matter. The pattern of what we're building doesn't really change, just the size might change slightly.
If you could share with us, as this was beginning, capital expenditure. I mean, how much did you have to buy? How much did you own? I mean, if somebody thinks about this, doing this somewhere else, what do you need when it comes to kind of an infusion of capital to get something like this going?
So when we started, I already mentioned New Life Furniture Bank. That's where we donated the few items that we made during COVID, during shutdown. That's where we found as a place to donate. And that's when we discovered they had a wood shop. And I was told that there was capacity in the wood shop. So my brain started turning over. They need furniture. If I'm going to expand this thing, we need a wood shop. And that's how the partnership developed. So the expenditure for the wood shop was very minimal to start with, almost zero. There were a few small tools that we needed to get going, mainly hand tools, but nothing major. The bigger machines were already there. Now, over the first year, we bought a couple of bigger machines that we needed from donations. But honestly, we did not spend a lot of money to start out. It was free rent because we were giving them the furniture we built. Most of the big machines were there. The biggest thing we needed early on was a truck. And Curt, you may remember this.
Sure do.
In the early days, boy, the volunteers were showing up in their own pickups, and Curt did this to help us collect wood, which was awesome. But obviously that couldn't go on. I couldn't keep asking these guys, hey, can we use your pickup again? And a truck appeared, a donation from a company that was closing a plant up in Columbus. Prospiant is the name of the company. And someone from there, someone on my board was with them at the time, and they were closing the plant and said, I think we can donate this truck. And they did. So that expenditure was covered. And our labor was free because it was volunteers.
Yep.
Other materials were things like screws and glue. And at the time, New Life was helping with those as well because we were in their shop. So when we started out, it was very low. things have changed, which we'll get to eventually, but initially it was pretty low.
And talking about that one episode that I went with you, we went down to Kentucky. And here again, it's, as you've heard from Nick, it's connection. It's networking with people, and all of a sudden you have a conversation and somebody says, well, I know somebody and I can help with somebody. So a friend of ours reached out and said, who's a foreman on a big complex where they were building apartments or townhouses, but huge place, right? Somebody made a calculation error in trusses. So they had all these trusses laying there that were made specifically for this job that could not be used. So he called us.
And it's very costly to take them back. Yeah. Sometimes they don't want them back because they don't have an order for them. They're custom built.
So he puts out an APB to all the volunteers and said, hey, I need some help. We're going down to this place and bringing a truck. If you can bring your truck, bring some tools. I got there with my chainsaw, and I'm cutting through the connection pieces, right? And I'm cutting through that, and people, you hauled so much wood. We're to the point like, where are we going to put all this wood when we get back to New Life?
It's a good problem to have.
It is a good problem to have. Yeah. So that was a fun time. And anytime you need an extra truck, feel free to give me a call because I love doing that stuff with you, Nick. You know that.
How did you know about Nick's business, or how did that come?
I heard about Scrap2Home from Dan Owens from our men's group. He actually told us because here again, the opportunity to look at opportunities that you have. You talked about funding. There was an email that went out, hey, Scrap2Home is going to be over at Rheingeist Brewery because they're highlighting a bunch of nonprofits. The idea is you come on in, you buy a beer, you get a chip, and then you get to put your chip into the nonprofit that you believe that you would like to support. And then at the end of the night, they count up all the chips, and then Rheingeist makes a donation to that nonprofit.
That's awesome.
And I believe you walked away with the cash.
We did. That year we won. I don't know how much beer you drank that night, Curt, but we did win.
He did his part. He did his part.
If I can help him that way, I'm on board. But that's how I got to meet Nick. And then we sat down and had a beer and talked about it. And then I went on in and sort of helped out. So talk a little bit about how the people that come on in and what they do, and do they need to have experience?
You're correct. It's been word of mouth that has brought people to Scrap2Home, volunteers particularly. And I should shout out to Dan Owens because he was hugely helpful bringing people in. And so they come in, they don't need woodworking experience, just a willingness to help out. And honestly, there are some people that come that use no machines or tools. All they do is stain. There are people who just want to sand and stain and then go up the line. Some people are happy using the bigger tools. So really any level, as long as they're willing to come help and they want to get involved, we can use them. We have work they can do.
Yeah, and what was cool about that, even though I have some experience in working with wood, you paired me up with somebody who had a lot of experience so that I was learning as well as doing, and then as a result of that, the next time I came back, I could do things myself. So it was sort of a personal growth opportunity. If I have an interest in doing some woodwork, well, there's a good way to get started. You know, it was fun. And then afterwards, you always reinforce, right? So what happened after we got done with our, what was it, about a 3-4 hour shift that we would do?
Yep.
What would you do then?
So at the end of every building session, if it's a morning session, I bring lunch. And it's pretty simple. It's sandwich materials, and we make lunch, and we sit down and have lunch together. You may have been there in the afternoon. I can't remember.
I went for lunch. I was doing the lunch. I never did the afternoon stint.
Well, the afternoon's really more popular because at the end of the afternoon builds, we have tea.
Why? Why would you have tea?
Well, of course. You hear that guy?
And then do a toast to the king.
I want to do it even more now. I have never had authentic tea with a real deal dude.
Tea and something else?
Well, that's really the case. My wife likes to bake, and she's an excellent baker, and so she always bakes. So our afternoon tea has scones, cookies, coffee cake, whatever. You mention it, she makes something. And
whatever a crumpet is.
What is
a crumpet?
Well, the most similar thing we have here in the States is an English muffin, but they're not quite the same.
Why do they call it an English muffin? If it's
they're trying to be like a crumpet.
Yeah, that's right.
So crumpet wannabe.
Yeah.
Thomas and his wannabe crumpet.
All right, so let's continue on with your journey.
So just can I
please
just to add a little bit about the lunch and the tea thing. When I first started this, I knew I would need volunteers. And I wanted to try and create some kind of community around the volunteer group. And I was worried that people would show up, volunteer for a few hours, then they all go home. And of course, it can be quite noisy in the woodshop, and there's no opportunity for people to interact, get to know each other, etc. And that troubled me. So when we first started, from day one, we've always done this lunch or tea thing to help build the community of volunteers. So it's become very important to me and very popular because of my wife's baking.
That's
Nick,
a great idea.
I'm not sure which is the bigger gift to humanity, the reclamation of what was headed for the dumpster, or the gift that is furniture at a very affordable or free situation to people who might be in need, or the camaraderie and community you're building and the people doing the work. I'm not sure which is
and
more.
Personal growth of those that are coming there learning something. Right? You know?
What a gift.
It's interesting you say that. A good friend of mine from England who I was undergrad with, and we stay in touch, when he, we chat about what I started and what I'm doing, and he has said that to me. He said, Nick, I think one of the most valuable things you're doing is you're giving these retired folks somewhere to go, something to do, something to be part of. So absolutely. I hope.
How many volunteers do you have that work with you on a regular basis, would you say?
I would say about 14.
14.
Regular. So that crew are coming, some of them more than once a week, and then others maybe every 2 to 3 weeks, but they've all been with me for 2 or 3 years. They're amazing. I cannot thank them enough. They're awesome. They show up, they have a great attitude, they work hard, they have fun. That's the regular crew.
I think this would be a good time to take a quick break. If you're enjoying our show, we'd be incredibly grateful if you could take a moment to comment. And if you like what you're hearing, leave us a 5-star review. Your feedback not only makes our day, but helps other listeners discover our content. Your support through listening, sharing, following, and reviewing means the world to us and helps our podcast grow. Thanks so much for being part of the Redirect family. So let's now get back to our conversation. I'm really interested in the journey part of you got this started. Just had a little conversation about how many people are volunteering. You're in growth mode. Where are you at?
So lots of change happening right now. So we moved out from the wood shop at New Life Furniture Bank back at the end of June last year. We were growing, we were developing, our needs were changing, so it was time for a move. And we are in the middle of moving into a brand new wood shop. It's part of a skilled trades education center.
Wow.
That's being built by the Dan Beard Council, Scout in America.
Oh, wow.
So it's the Scouts organization in town. Yeah. They have a camp property out near Loveland, Camp Friedlander. And so they've built this new facility there, and it's just opening now. And they have car mechanics, welding, plumbing, electrical work, and a wood shop. And so we've now developed a partnership with the Scouting organization whereby we're going to use their wood shop. So if you think about it, during the school day when the Scouts aren't there, the wood shop is open, so we'll be in there. And then we're going to help them with some of their programming with the Scouts. So that's the next step for Scrap2Home, and we're in the middle of it.
How big of a space do you have?
It's not a huge wood shop, but there are other spaces around the wood shop that we can use. I think it's about 600 square feet, the actual wood shop part, but there's other spaces that we can use which we'll need.
For building and such.
For assembly and staining,
What does this mean for the growth aspect of where you were and where you are now and the potential that it could bring?
It's just a little more freedom and flexibility for what we're doing. And, we'll start, I think, new product lines. We will continue to give furniture to New Life Furniture Bank because they're an awesome organization. It's a great distribution channel. They need the furniture. But we are exploring other distribution channels. Various reasons for that. New Life they have a particular mission, and we're trying to do something slightly different as well. Still donating furniture. So it gives us that freedom a little bit. Also to do fundraising events. I do something around team building, which you can talk about that later. Just really the freedom and flexibility, fundraising, etc. Mm-hmm. That's what's going to allow us to grow, develop.
Yeah. I remember when we were talking earlier when you got started that I kept bringing in my little sales world, and I'm like, boy, Nick, you could make some things here and we can sell them.
Yep.
And he's like, well, I'd like to do that, Curt, but since we're at New Life, we have to support New Life.
Yep.
But now that you're out,
Yep.
you probably have that freedom to create some things that could be for sale to help go back into the company, right?
Absolutely. So it was something I didn't expect, but people started asking me if they could buy some of the furniture. And we went to some farmers markets, community events, and we were just really trying to spread the word. And people saying, can we buy these things? And I was like, I guess. But you're right. I didn't want to build at New Life and sell the furniture because we were building there to give to them. That was our agreement. Mm-hmm. It's perfectly understandable. So anything I was selling before, I was having to build at home in the garage. Obviously, there's a limit to that. If you see my garage, you understand. But you're right. In the new shop, we'll have the freedom to build and sell more, which, yes, we hope it will generate some revenue, but also it's a great way to spread the word about what we're doing.
You mentioned a word a little earlier on, and that was the board.
Yeah.
When did you decide that you needed a board, and how did you get people on the board, and what's their role in everything that's going on? Because I know there's a lot of people out there that start thinking about starting something. I think a board is really important. Tell us about your experience with that.
And for the record, for the listeners, we're talking about a board of advisors, i.e. people, not a piece of lumber. Continue, please.
Correct.
Thank you for that.
So, okay, let's go back to COVID. We do this little project. I start thinking, can we scale this thing up? We go to New Life. We get a partnership. Okay, we're going to do this thing. So fast forward 2 years from COVID, fall of 2022, September 19th of 2022 was the first day we built with volunteers at New Life. So that's what I really consider our start. So between COVID and September 19th of 2022, that's when I decided, all right, we're going to do this. We're going to create a nonprofit. To create a nonprofit with 501c3 status, which is what you need for tax purposes, etc., you have to have a board. So I knew that was coming. I'd done some work with other nonprofits, so I knew we were going to need a board. And I'd started thinking about friends, neighbors who I wanted on the board. I really honestly wanted good people. Obviously, there was some experience I was looking for with business development, things like that. But I wanted good people who would support the mission. And so I had, to start with, my wife and daughter were on the board. They're good people. And then it was friends and neighbors.
Yeah.
And so moving on from there, we do have new people on the board now. And that's something we're still growing. Our board is still growing. Trying to identify the exact skills that we need on the board that can help us reach our goals.
The first skill is I hate waste.
You have to believe in the mission, or else you wouldn't want to be there. Yeah.
So, Nick, you mentioned that there are some things that are changing for your future. There's some things that you're going to be able to do now that you might not have been, or some things that are coming down the pipeline. What does that look like?
So first of all, let's talk about the building of furniture. We're going to continue building coffee tables, end tables, kitchen tables with stools. That's something that people need all the time. But we started, and we're going to continue new product lines. So bookshelves, bed frames, things like that typically people need in their homes. So that's one thing, is expanding our product line. I did briefly mention before, I think, our distribution channels. So we now have connected with St. Vincent de Paul. You may have heard of them. Great organization. We gave them some furniture in December. I'm hoping that's going to become an ongoing partnership. So those two things, and then fundraising. So holding events, holding a fundraiser. We've not really done those things before, but now we're at the point where we need to. So holding events. The other thing I'd really like to develop is team building workshops. So when I first started this, one of my ideas was to hold sessions where businesses, groups, teams, any group or team really, could come in. They would build furniture, but I would do other activities with them around leadership, communication, trust, camaraderie, whatever it might be, around team building. So we've done about 7 of those now, and I'd like to keep doing those and expand that. So we're going to try and market that more and bring in more groups. We are going to be partnering with the Scouts, so we'll be helping with some of their merit badge work, some of their summer camp stuff. We've talked about that. We have a new relationship with Building Value. You may have heard of them. They're part of Easter Seals, and they're involved in workforce training. So their executive director reached out to me a few months ago looking for some good volunteer activities for their teams or their members of their program when they weren't actually getting paid. And because they do workforce training, coming and volunteering for us, they can use tools, and it's a great fit. So we did 5 sessions, I think, with them back in November, December, and we're going to continue that partnership. So various new partnerships and things going on, whether it's the building, whether it's the donating, whether it's holding events, there's a lot could be happening.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
I mean, you said 3 to 4 years that this has really been.
Just over 3, yeah.
Yeah, really been rocking. So I want to, I'm excited for you because I think all of a sudden there's big doors that are being opened right now, and you have the sky's the limit. All right. Yeah, as a nonprofit, you got to do fundraising and you got to have people to make donations. But the other thing I want to ask of you is that you had this decision when you're a young guy and you're still working.
I'm not that young, Curt.
Well, but still, you're younger than me and you're younger than Adam. Are you? No. Adam's still young. Dang it. You got to get this.
Gotcha again.
What advice would you give to somebody who has a passion but hasn't gone through it? What are the things that what got you there? What have you learned? How do you have to stay the course?
Yeah.
What are those intrinsic things that you've learned through this experience that you could pass on to somebody else?
I always think passion's a strong word, but I suppose that's what it is. But you've got an interest, something you care about, something that motivates you, something you think about when you're not working. Pay attention to that. Be aware. I mean, that's itching at you for some reason. So first of all, pay attention. And then what do you enjoy doing? What motivates you intrinsically when you know you're not going to get paid for it, but it gives you some kind of satisfaction, meaning, purpose, value, and you get excited about going to do it. That's, again, listen to that, pay attention to it. And then on a more practical level, you got to try, right? I mean, if you think you've got something, give it a go. What's the worst that can happen? It doesn't pan out. Now, the more practical level does relate to that because, of course, you've got to be in a situation where that's possible. So my kids were grown. They were in college when this all started. But we were in a position where I could try this. Now, I have a very supportive and understanding wife who was okay with me quitting my full-time job. That was a big deal. No joking.
No joking.
Sure.
So that was
huge
tough.
redirection.
We were independently wealthy to the point that we could have funded this whole thing. Great. We weren't at that point. But this is my point. You ask, what do you do? Well, you got to figure out, do I have enough? Do I have enough for my life? Do I have the freedom to go and try something? I feel fortunate that I felt we had just about enough. You can ask my wife about that, but
she'll be our next guest.
Yeah. But seriously, we were okay. And right at the time I was making this decision, my wife got a full-time job with benefits. That's a game changer.
Oh, wow.
Right?
Wow.
So she'd been part-time. That happened, and we looked at each other like, okay. So that allowed me, it was still a hit. It was still a financial hit. And again, you've got to be in a position where you can take that hit. And I said, we'll give it a go. We'll see what happens. Worst case scenario was it didn't work, and then I've got to go find another job. So I think you've got to be honest with yourself about where you are, but really think about how much is enough. How much do you really need for what you want to do?
And some of that intrinsic fulfillment
Yeah.
and that sense of contribution and reward that comes from that, it's hard to put a monetary value on that.
Right.
You still have bills to pay. You got, your kids want to eat regularly, that kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
But at the end of the day, I mean, you weigh together what is financially enough with that sense of fulfillment that a lot of people don't live with, to be honest.
Yeah.
They're in excess of money, but they're in poverty for fulfillment and purpose. And so that probably contributes a lot to your situation, yes?
Yeah. And the other piece of advice would be you don't have to quit your job to follow some kind of passion or some cause that you care about. Particularly if your kids have reached the age, if you have kids and they've grown, once they reach teenage years, they really don't want to hang out with you anyway. So you've got a little more time on your hands, especially if they've left the house. So you don't have to quit your job. I don't like waste of time, as I mentioned. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of time in the day and the week, I think. If you haven't got those other commitments, you may have your full-time job, but what are you doing the rest of the time? Yeah. And, you don't have to grow the thing to the point where it's a nonprofit. You can, seriously, in 5-6 hours a week, you can do a lot of good, fulfill a lot of purpose for yourself. It doesn't have to become a full-time gig.
Yeah.
So I would encourage people to think about it that way too.
Yeah.
Is it true you have to be a little crazy. You got to be a risk taker. Yeah, that little seed inside you needs to be there to take that risk.
I think that's a fair comment. It's funny because I don't think of myself as a risk taker. I think of myself as fairly conservative with a small c in terms of the way I live my life. But I've done a few things in my life that other people would say that's a pretty big risk. I mean, I left England. That was a risk in some ways.
Sure.
So I guess that's accurate, Dale. I just don't see myself that way, but I suppose it's true.
Outside of your wife and your family encouraging you, who else was very important to you in the early part to help you get your arms around this, that sort of mentored you or guided you through this dream of yours?
I'm glad you mentioned wife and family. They were huge in this, huge. All three kids, my wife, my dad, my mom, they all were in town. They were huge, so thank you for mentioning that. Yes, many other people. We mentioned Dan Owens earlier. He was huge. Dan got introduced to me through another guy, Mark. Dan jumped in. He was all interested and excited. He was with me every build when we started for at least the first couple of years. He was on the board. Dan was huge. He's an expert woodworker. Yes, so I leaned on him for the expertise with machines and for ideas about designs. He was amazing. We used his truck on multiple occasions. But Dan was... We would not be here if it hadn't been for Dan in the early days. Absolutely. Then... some friends of mine who had been entrepreneurs and had their own businesses, I chatted with them. One guy, Flip Cohen, met with Flip. He said, you need to meet a friend of mine. His name's Ken Cable. And Ken has become one of our major volunteers. I think he might be number 2 or 3 on the list. But beyond that, Ken ran his own business. He helped me with business plans. He helped me with budgets. He has been amazing. That's awesome. But there's other people too. Ken then brought in a friend, Mark Barsman. Mark Barsman has brought in multiple volunteers. Dan Owens brought in people like Steve Gadd and yourself, Steve Gadd, another volunteer. So all those people have helped either understanding woodworking, business planning, volunteer recruitment. And then at New Life Furniture Bank, the guy that runs the building program there, his name is Bill Fee. And Bill was a volunteer for them when I was first there. I think he's now part-time employed by them, I'm not sure, but he was a volunteer at the time. Bill was hugely, hugely helpful in terms of, again, he's an expert woodworker, welcoming Scrap2Home into the shop that they'd already set up and they had their system down, but just being really helpful with what we were trying to do. So Bill was huge too. And then other non-profit leaders in town, Amy Cheney, Betsy Wilson, both work at Crayons to Computers. I talked and asked them so many questions early on. They were helpful. I could probably go on, and I know I'm going to hate because I'm going to think of some people after this. But the short answer, Curt, is so many people. And that has been the most heartening thing about this whole venture is all the people that have reached out to help. That is the most heartening part about it, whether they are volunteers, business advisors, donors, just so many people have helped. It's been awesome.
Isn't it cool to remember back on a bike ride and look where that ride has taken you?
Yeah.
I mean, so let's talk about the new facility that you're in. Let's talk about how can somebody get involved. Let's talk about where do they go to sign up? You know, what's your website? And you know, there's so many things here. Not only have we talked about repurposing product, but we're also talking about donations and support. And we're also talking about getting people involved. So give us sort of a rundown of what you see in this new building and all the ways that people can connect with you.
So we've talked about, you know, the building side of it and the events that we're going to try and do and the new connections, new distribution channels. That's all going to happen. We do have to start generating more revenue. Any business, doesn't matter if it's a nonprofit or not, as you know, has to generate revenue to operate. We were operating on a very slim budget, thanks to New Life Furniture Bank, for a long time, but we're just not sustainable in that way. So we've got to figure out how to generate revenue. We ran our first ever campaign in 2025, and it ran for about 7 or 8 months. And we got very close to our goal of $250,000 to get set up in the new shop and run. But we have to keep generating revenue. And that's going to be one of our big priorities going forwards. You know, there's just no other way to run a business.
Have you thought about standing up an online store?
Yeah. Down the road, that's a possibility, whether it's online or whether it's some small showroom where we have the shop, something like that. Again, generating revenue from those sales, but also spreading the word about what we do. Sometimes what's happened, and again, this is the generosity of people. I've sold them a piece of furniture and I've told them it's $150, and they write me a check for $200.
Yeah,
I mean, that's incredible. It's awesome.
Yeah.
You know, I don't ask for that; they just do it.
Yeah.
But that's the benefit of building and selling.
Yeah.
It's that revenue plus those people connecting with Scrap2Home now. They didn't just buy furniture; they're now a donor. That's a whole new connection.
yeah.
Where would be real life places where you could see your furniture appearing?
You mean like in people's homes and things like that, or
Antique Roadshow?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Have you thought through, like, where could this show up?
it certainly could be, for example, in public places. Like we've built picnic tables and benches. Those could be anywhere, any park, any school, any outside businesses. They have picnic tables for people to eat their lunch. In fact, the guy I mentioned, Flip Cohen, we built picnic tables for his business. So I think there's lots of places where the furniture could be. I mean, we had one business wanted one of our end tables to put in their office space, just in their entranceway, in their foyer. So really, I mean, there are end tables, coffee tables everywhere, benches.
How can people get in contact with you? How can people sign up to volunteer? What's the process for that?
So if you go to our website, it's scrap2home.org. So it's scrap, the number 2, home.org. There's a contact button on there. You can reach out to us by email. That's probably the easiest way to contact us. And then someone will get back to you.
I just want to say, Nick, thank you for spending the time with us today and learning more about Scrap2Home. And I'm so excited at what the future holds for you, because it's just such a delight to see somebody that's just so engaged into something that they love to do. And as a result, you bring joy to other people, not only in people that are volunteering, but people that are receiving your product. So congratulations.
Well, thank you.
I love your story. I'm a story builder. We're talking building, we're talking stories. This is great. Someday, I know on some big wall, we're going to be putting the whole story together and how it happened, and people are going to come in and be amazed by it. But, congratulations on bringing such a great story to life. I mean, I love your whole push to, I hate waste. And there it began.
I want to say this again, that if there's somebody listening that's from another city and you are really intrigued with Nick's story and want to bring that story to your neighborhood or your town, go to the website, contact Nick. He'd love to talk to you, because there's a lot of stuff that's being just thrown out all over the country. And if we had more Scrap2Homes, think about the impact that would make down the road.
Did you have any? I think you said something about some thank yous. Any thank yous you want to share?
So there are a lot of people I'd like to thank. At the risk of missing people out, I'm going to mention some names. First of all, my regular volunteers. You guys know who you are. Many of you have helped in multiple ways. Steve, Ken, Mark, Mike, Jerry, Dick, Jay, my dad, Lois, Marcy, Kathy, Charlie, Bob, and Deb. Thank you so much. And anyone who's volunteered for Scrap2Home. We can't operate without volunteers. Thank you so much to all of you. To the donors, there are many, many individual donors. Thanks to all of you. I can't possibly mention everybody, but thank you for your support. Foundations, Greater Cincinnati, Ridgeway, Fleur-Lage, GE Foundation, William P. Anderson, Elsa Heisel-Sewell, and Robert Gould. Corporate support from Formica Corporation, Gorilla Glue, the Hillman Group, and then Hamilton County Resource for a grant, and Magnified Giving for your grants. And then multiple other people and organizations that have helped in various ways. New Life Furniture Bank, Pro Bono Partners of Ohio, Dan Owens, Bill Fee, Shannon and Lee Carter, Amy Cheney and Betsy Wilson, Flip and Sheila Cohen, Liz Dolman and Sam Patel, Greg and Maggie Roach, Greg Eisenhower, Mark Phillips, Brett Collins, Rob and Ann Ramsey, Reese and Jessica Gable, Matt and Jody Hoying, Kyle and Aaron Jepson, Sea Change Group, and Doug Adams. And then my board members, past and present, thank you so much. And finally, my family, my 3 kids, Sam, Katie, and Molly. You guys have been awesome. You support in any way you can. And my wife. Without Amy's support and backing on this, Scrap2Home would never have happened. So thanks to all of you.
That's fantastic. I mean, it's really amazing what started as a plan years ago, and look at all the people that have come and been a part of Scrap2Home. That's fantastic. You've got such a great amount of support.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. It's been the most heartening part of all of this.
That's a great community. I mean, that, what an opportunity to be able to bring everybody together under a single purpose like that, Nick. Congrats.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us on the Redirect Podcast.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Redirect Podcast. We would like to thank the University of Cincinnati 1819 Innovation Hub for allowing us to record our episodes at the eSports Innovation Lab recording studio. Don't forget to tell your friends about the Redirect Podcast and have them follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Instagram. Want more information? Do you have a question for Curt, Dale, or Adam? Or would you like us to consider a topic that interests you for a future podcast? Send us an email at info@redirect-u.com. Remember, the journey isn't over. It's just redirected. There's purpose in your life. Find it and do something about it. Hey, I've got one more comment. The Redirect Podcast is presented solely for educational and entertainment purposes. We engage in an open, honest conversations about personal growth, life transitions, and the lessons we've learned through our own experiences. While we speak as experts in our own lives, we are not licensed therapists, medical professionals, or certified coaches. The content shared on the Redirect Podcast is not intended to be a substitute for professional advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the guidance of qualified professionals for any physical, mental, or emotional concerns that you may have. We're grateful to share this space with you and hope that our stories inspire reflection and connection. If you're in need of more support, we encourage you to connect with a trusted professional who can help.